Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome back to another video, and I'm assuming that based on the title of this video you know what it's about, and it's about life just working itself out. Although you could argue maybe, hey Ahmed, you're a young buck on this journey of life, you don't really know much, but everybody's experience in life is ultimately different, and it'll oftentimes lead to the same conclusion regardless of age and experience, right? So based on just life in general, my experience with it so far is, oftentimes people get caught up, they stress about it, they stress about a certain part of it, be it if they're studying, if they're working or looking for work, or if they're starting a family, maintaining a family, whatever it might be. Oftentimes they might get in this slump of thinking, you know what, this is about as crazy as it gets. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. But I'm here to tell you, in life in general, that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. It always works itself out. Now, I'm gonna move this over real quick. That way the mic doesn't pick up on the heater opening that much. One sec. And yeah, so hopefully, since it's not right under it. Alrighty. But anyways, what we need to understand about life in general is that we're only responsible for what's within our control. Now, oftentimes the stresses of life come in once we start dwelling on what's beyond our control. Well, we start, it's like, yeah, you get the point. So as long as you're able to be in the mindset of understanding that you can only do what you can. And when I say that, I'm not saying that lightly. I mean, you better perform at 100%. You better follow through on whatever it is that you can do in a particular situation that comes up in life. But anything else that's out of your control, you have no say in it. You can't dwell on it. You can't point fingers and blame and say, so-and-so, this is your fault, that fault. That's counterintuitive, and it does nothing, ultimately. And before we move on, I want you guys to ask yourself a certain question, a specific question. How stressed out are you in life in general? Take a minute, comment your thoughts below, let me know. And then also, what would be interesting to see is what previous experiences have you had in life that you've ultimately worked through and seen the light at the end of the tunnel for it. Are you stuck? Do you feel like it's not going to get any better? Is it going to get worse? And so on and so forth. Let us know. We can start a discussion down below and go from there. But for me, one of the strategies I've used personally in life is to understand the value of patience. People aren't lying when they say that patience is a virtue. Now, I used to work as a tutor for a living, and believe me when I tell you patience is a virtue, because it constantly gets tested almost on a daily basis. So patience, I believe, is more, it's something that can definitely be developed. You don't really know you have it until you're put in situations where you have to maintain yourself, you have to maintain your composure and whatnot. But once you understand the value of patience and you work on it, life tends to get a whole lot better and easier. You start to value things differently, you start to conserve your energy, you save it for what actually needs more of your attention as opposed to what doesn't, and so on. It's a continuous process, and do not, I repeat, do not take on burdens that are not yours. It's one of the, is it side effects, or one of the negative things about of good people in general is they like to take on other people's burdens, thinking that by doing so they're alleviating the stress of others and so on and so forth. When in reality, they just end up making themselves more miserable. And You don't want to take on things that have nothing to do with you and ultimately set you back farther than you would have liked. And at the end of the day, don't think that by taking on other people's burdens that it somehow addresses their issues and it solves them and they move on, because that is not true. Nobody can solve somebody else's problems. You can only solve your problem. They can only solve their problem. There's nothing you can do for it. That's the most beautiful thing about life, is it ultimately relies on the individual themselves to understand what they need to get done for themselves and move forward in that sense. And another thing that I've seen some people get caught up in is they try to do life's job for it. And, you know, it's sort of like when I used to tutor and whatnot, where people try to do the brain's job for it. So they end up stressing and they get nothing done and they overthink and so on and so forth. Life has a funny way of just working itself out in the end. Sometimes in the present moment, you don't know why something happened, you don't know why something negative happened, or why you made a certain mistake. But so long as you're confident with yourself, you're intentional, and you move forward and you learn from it, in hindsight, you'll see how all the pieces fall into place and you'll realize why those things happened. Something like, there was a saying, it was like every failure is a redirection or something like that. That's true so long as you're still moving forward and working on improving yourself. And my philosophy, if you will, one of the many philosophies I have for my life is, you know, you just put one foot in front of the other. That's it. On life's journey, sometimes it might get steep, sometimes it might get rainy, snowy, whatever it might be. But so long as you're committed to the process and you're just putting one foot in front of the other, then eventually you'll figure things out. Just don't beat yourself up and don't feel like you're being rushed. You know, you're not running some Fortune 500 company. But don't feel like you're being rushed in life in general, because that's the easiest way to lose track of what you want for yourself and where you're headed. And finally, like I've said previously, in many of the videos beforehand, life is a journey, not a destination. So treat it that way. Enjoy it, love it, make the most out of it, grow as an individual, and ultimately, I don't want to say like figure things out, because I mean in life you can't really figure everything out, but just be on a path. Pick a path in life, move towards it. You realize it's the wrong one, pivot, move on, go on another path, and so on and so forth. There's so much to life that's worth exploring, that's worth seeing, both outside in the world and in ourselves. And with that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Life will